The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Tuesday, May 27th. And today is, oh man, you guys are going to love this. It's National Grape Day, you guys. I mean, Yarrow, I'm surprised you're not more excited. I mean, grapes are what makes wine.
They're the precursor.
The precursor. Yeah, that's right. It's like fresh frozen with BHO, bro. Really? Okay. All right. Fair enough. It's also this is so good. It's also National Grape Popsicle Day.
Oh, see, there's a monopoly on this day. I see it already. Big Grape.
I'm surprised.
By Big Grape.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not like Granddaddy Purple Day either. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all this purple weed going around. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Shout out to dropping the temperature at the end of flower.
Mm-hmm. It's also National Cellophane Tape Day today, you guys.
I don't know how the fuck they pulled that day off, but okay.
Shout out to Cellophane, because Scotch, I think, is probably why. Scotch got a big monopoly going on.
Big tape and big grape, got it.
Yep, big tape.
You hear us, Todd?
Yes.
Can you hear us, Todd?
Todd,
yes,
you can hear us now? I don't know. Todd's having issues. Today. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we are going to go right on into Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that helps justice-impaired individuals get their life back on track. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
All right. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning.
Everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome back to work. Okay. So, a major development in Pennsylvania's cannabis legalization debate. State Senator Marty Flynn, a Democrat, has announced plans to introduce new marijuana legalization legislation, just days after a Senate committee rejected a House-passed bill that would have established state-run cannabis stores. Flynn's proposal, called the Keystone Cannabis Act, promises a more traditional approach. It would legalize marijuana for adults 21 and over, placing oversight with the Department of Health, Agriculture, Community and Economic Development, the state police, and the attorney general. The bill would direct tax revenue projected to top $500 million annually into a new community reinvestment and infrastructure fund, supporting rural development, public health, law enforcement, there it is, and substance use prevention programs. Flynn emphasized the importance of public safety and economic opportunity, saying, "It's time for a common sense framework that balances freedom and responsibility." The measure also includes provisions for social equity, expungement of past marijuana convictions, and strict product testing and labeling requirements. This comes as Democratic lawmakers across both chambers work to find consensus before July. While the governor supports legalization, division remains. Republicans who control the Senate have expressed hesitation, with some preferring preferring to focus on creating new regulatory body first. Still, public support is strong. Polls show a majority of Pennsylvanians favor legalization, especially through privately owned dispensaries rather than state-run stores. Governor Josh Shapiro has criticized the Senate for blocking reform, warning that Pennsylvania is losing out as neighboring states like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and Ohio move ahead with adult use markets. More cannabis bills are circulating, including one from Representatives Abby Major and Emily Kincaid, that supports private sales and others aiming to improve oversight of the state's medical marijuana program. While legalization is far from settled, Flynn says no momentum is building and that legalization is no longer a question of if, but when. So a couple things that stood out to me here. We're sending the money right back to the police, Jason, because, we got to protect everybody, right? Just right back to the fucking police. But having the state police as part of the regulatory body sounds really, really, really problematic. You can't be regulated by and enforced upon by the same body. That just doesn't seem like a great idea to me. If you don't believe me, look at the DCC's lack of due process for operators and the enforcement stance. But imagine if the DCC could put you in handcuffs. So I'll throw it back to you guys. This is interesting. I think, maybe I do side would they need to have a oversight, a regulatory body before they give someone something to regulate, because that was a whole lot of chiefs and not a lot of Indians when it comes to regulating cannabis in Pennsylvania. But what do you guys think?
I mean, it sounds to me similar, like they're putting the wolf in the hen house, Jenny Beth, with this type of legislation.
100% here. What are we missing out on when he's complaining that they're missing out? They're missing out on tax revenue. Josh Shapiro's like, let me get the money. How many programs have fallen straight on their freaking faces and been no starters even when they come around? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I totally agree.
I mean, that's the way to get cannabis passed around the country is tax money. I mean, that's what attracts, these legislators. So, to blame them for wanting to legalize because of taxes. I mean, everyone wants to legalize because of taxes. But I do agree that, having the state police involved, that's just not a good thing. It's never going to end well. It's not even going to start well. Right?
It's not going to start at all. We don't know who's running this thing. It's going to be, it's that meme on the internet of Spider-Mans all pointing at each other.
Oh, right.
It's very true. I mean, Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, this is not a Keystone policy, and I feel but at the same time, Pennsylvania's had a very restrictive market, even with the medical wise, with how they rolled out everything, and so, I kind of expected them to have a more conservative kind of approach, even with a very liberal governor and whatnot. But to me, this just seems like this whole bill was just created by law enforcement for law enforcement. To promote law enforcement, and that's just that it doesn't seem like it has any real outside cannabis influence that was added to this bill, and no real sensible policy other than lock them up.
No, I think Marijuana Moment only wanted to report on it because the Republicans blocked and the Democrats are introducing new legislation. Because I think this is a big fat non-starter for me, Jason, simply because of all the breakdown in regulatory bodies. The lack of an actual body with oversight and maybe any insight other than how to smell cannabis when they pull you over and, oh, buddy, you got weed in the car. And that just doesn't work. That's not how we do this. So, I would love to see more access for the people of Pennsylvania. They want it, overwhelmingly want it. But,
even the Amish want it.
Do it the right way.
Even the Amish want it.
Corn,
yeah, exactly. They love green corn. That's what I'm saying.
Yarrow, what do you think?
Yeah, Yarrow, you love to opine at the end.
Well, there you go.
I mean, we've heard Mr. Shapiro talk about the cash cow that was going to be the adult use market in his state, and we are seeing yet again the replication of policy missteps through an egregious tax structure that will not support a regulated market, the hopes and dreams of investors and entrepreneurs, and those that try to participate within that future framework. And so it will not be surprising, but it will be sad when it doesn't work that way for them, as it hasn't worked that way for many other markets. And so, yeah, as my cohort here pointed out, Todd hit the nail on the head. I mean, when we're talking about the division of tax revenue, everybody seems to find a way to support it because there's resources involved. Well, troubling for me about the article was the quote from the Republican policymaker who said that he didn't feel that there was consensus among four bodies that cannabis reform or legalization was a priority. I can't imagine reconciling every positive cannabis tax statement that's come out of Shapiro's mouth over the last couple of years as not wanting to figure out how they take advantage of, as they've pointed out, the state sales that are happening in states around them. And it until the tax thing is figured out, which we've already figured it out, it doesn't work. Until that's changed, we'll continue to see the same oafy, clumsy, backward-thinking missteps that we've seen over and over and over and over again. And it's too bad. It really is, because there is a world where those taxes, they don't lead with the taxes. And because they're the least likely to be fulfilled based on the projections of what they're going to do and all the societal good those tax revenues are going to provide. And so if we get rid of that, maybe we could change our thinking about why these programs are still meritorious and why they deserve to be supported, irrespective of the tax money it's not going to spin out of them and benefit every other constituent. And there are arguments for why an adult use market is still better than no adult use market, not the least of which is the type of nuisance enforcement that law still does for modest, minor little possessions and, smoking in a public park and the criminalization of just cannabis use by people. But that, when they say that they don't think this is a priority, when you're 20 years behind on something, and you're seeing all these other states stand up programs that still have billions of dollars in tax revenue. I don't know that the policymakers, lawmakers have to have a consensus on this to say, wait, we've got a lot of catching up to do. Let's do it better. Let's do it different. Let's make sure that the people who go in and risk money can make money, and that the people who scale these businesses have an opportunity to get in and an opportunity to exit when they choose to exit, not when the government tells them they're allowed to exit.
Talking crazy, bro.
Does anyone find it interesting in relation to that Josh Shapiro was one of the people that was over there grandstanding with Vice President Kamala Harris when she was having her little drug session with what was it? What was the guy? Fat Joe and a bunch of others in there trying to talk about how Schedule 3 was such a priority and this and this and that, and Governor Shapiro was sitting right next to her during this whole thing.
Well, I don't think you're actually making a point other than that politicians have political affiliations.
Right.
And when other politicians run and they stop off in their area codes or zip codes.
No, this was in D.C. That was definitely not his zip code. That's cute, though.
He was sitting next to Kamala. That's the whole problem. Yeah,
he was sitting right next to Kamala.
I know. If Eli had done a better job, he would have recognized that chair was not efficiently placed, and there wouldn't have even been a place to sit next to her, right?
That's a good synopsis right there, Yarrow. I love that.
Yarrow.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that too.
I mean, she hasn't seemed to sought any post-defeat relevancy in the news cycle recently. Has been mostly silent. I guess once the job wasn't available, she doesn't want to continue to maybe act as a counterbalancing voice of reason.
I know, it's crazy, right?
It's tough to get a word in.
What's going on in this country?
Yeah,
to get a word in with the orange chaos.
Oh man, so And on that, we're gonna roll.
I think there's been some questionable calls that have happened in the last 180 days or less that we've seen a lot of silence from a lot of people on the blue side of the aisle.
So lots of silencing going on, and it's not, you know what I'm saying, it's not cancel culture. But on that, we're gonna roll into our first commercial, and we're gonna be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility, so you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
And we are back, you guys.
Yeah, coming up next, we have the highest Republican, the high at nine head honcho. He's, you know, not the tallest, but he's the highest.
This is the highest.
Now he's 47, and if you didn't catch his thirst trap, maybe I'll get Anthony to post it today.
Oh, you guys
Happy
are funny.
birthday again, Jason Beck.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenny Beth.
Happy birthday, Mr. Beck.
Yes. I am now 47. The same number as the greatest number in American history, Todd. I knew you would love that.
The fact that you say that is... I know you think it, but the fact that you say it out loud.
Oh man,
it's par for the course.
Yeah, I can't help myself, Todd. It's just it's too easy with you guys. It's just too easy.
Get it?
Yep. But there's something that's been completely botched, you guys. That's right. More than 2 years after legalization, Delaware still has no marijuana retail stores, you guys. That's right. Municipalities and counties have banned or restricted businesses, but the state is in the process of issuing retail, growing, and manufacturing license. More than 2 years after Delaware legalized adult use marijuana in April of 2023, the state has yet to open a single retail dispensary, frustrating advocates and leaving consumers in limbo. Signed into law by Governor John Carney, House Bill 1 legalized possession of up to 1 ounce of cannabis for adults 21 and older, while House Bill 2 established a framework for a regulated market. However, as of May 16, 2025, bureaucratic hurdles and regulatory delays have stalled retail sales, and with the earliest dispensary openings now projected for early 2026, there's regulatory roadblocks because the Office of the Marijuana Commissioner, the OMC, tasked with overseeing the industry, has faced significant challenges, initially staffing shortages and the complexity of crafting regulations that have slowed the progress, you guys. The OMC, led by Commissioner Robert Koop, issued draft rules in early 2025 covering licensing, equity programs, and product safety, and public feedback extended the timeline, and the final regulations were submitted to the Delaware Register of Regulations on May 1st, 2025, with a 30-day review period ending on June 1st. The state plans to issue 125 licenses, including 50 retail, 30 manufacturing, 15 cultivation, and 30 testing licenses, with 37 reserved for social equity applicants and those disappropriately harmed by prior cannabis laws. However, the application process initially set for July 2024 was delayed to September of 2024 and then further postponed. Koop announced that the applications will now open in summer of 2025, with licenses awarded by late 2025 and stores potentially operational by March of 2026. In a quote, "We're trying to do this as quickly as possible while ensuring the rules are fair and safe," Koop said. But advocates say that they have a lot of frustration because advocates like Zoe Pachel, executive director of the Delaware Cannabis Advocacy Network, expresses disappointment over the delays. And Pachel, who pushed for legalization, noted that consumers expected retail access sooner. In a quote, they say, "We thought we'd have stores by now," she said. "The process has been slower than anyone anticipated." And while home cultivation of up to 6 plants per household, 3 per adult, is legal, many residents rely on medical dispensaries or the illicit market as their retail options remain unavailable. Delaware's medical marijuana program, serving over 17,000 patients, continues to operate through 6 dispensaries owned by major companies like Columbia Care, Verano, and Curaleaf, and these companies prioritized for adult use licenses have kept prices high, around $60 per eighth, prompting some consumers to seek cheaper alternatives in neighboring states like Maryland, where retail sales began back in July of 2023, or New Jersey with nearly 200 dispensaries by 2025. But there's economic and social impacts also that equate in this because the delay has economic consequences. Delaware projected $17 million in cannabis tax revenue for fiscal year 2025, but without retail sales, these funds remain unrealized. A 15% sales on adult use marijuana is intended to support substance abuse programs, equity initiatives, and general state funds. And meanwhile, the illicit market thrives, with Pachel warning that delays push people to unregulated sources, which isn't safe, he says. Social equity is a key focus, with Delaware reserving licenses for minority-owned businesses and those impacted by the war on drugs. And however, critics like Pachel argue that the state's equity program lacks clarity, potentially favoring large corporations over small entrepreneurs. And a quote says, "We need to ensure the process isn't just a handout to big cannabis," she said. And the political and regional context is Governor Carney, who initially opposed legalization, signed the bills without a veto, but expressed concerns about public health. And his administration's cautious approach has drawn criticism. Through Coop defends the pace and citing the need for robust oversight, and in a quote says, "We're building a system from scratch," he said. "It's not something you rush." Oh man. Delaware's neighbors have outpaced its Maryland adult use market, generated $1.3 billion in sales in 2024, while New Jersey's robust industry serves as a model. Pennsylvania is still debating legalization, as we just covered in the last story, and many soon will leapfrog Delaware if it passes pending legislation. This regional competition adds pressure to expedite Delaware's market launch. And looking ahead, they say the OMC is finalizing a digital licensing portal and preparing for public hearings on regulations. And once licenses are awarded, approved, and applicants will need time to secure locations, pass inspections, and stock inventory, pushing retail openings into 2026. But for now, Delawareans like Pachel remain hopeful but impatient. In a quote, they finally say, "The people voted for this," she said. "It's time to deliver," they say. Well, deliver. And now it sounds like their delivery is late, and they're going to all be eating cold pizza by the time this thing arrives. And I can't wait to hear what you guys got to say about this.
I understand why it's so difficult to get a program together. There's 38 programs around the country.
Right?
They all have their problems, right?
Yeah.
But there's something you could fucking follow, right?
And
it's just doesn't make any sense.
And it's they said it. It's all because, you know what I'm saying, that they don't want to rush it. But it's like there's so, just like you said, Todd, there's so many models, and it seems like they're using the same model that has been a failure in so many other markets.
Right.
So it's like
they sit around the conference table and pick the failure.
Yeah.
And what do you guys think?
Who failed best? Let's see if we can.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. Let's see if we can fail better than them. Mm-hmm.
No, it's just so silly. It just doesn't make any sense. Make it make sense.
Yeah. I'm with that. What do you guys say, Jenny Beth? Jenny Beth, are you? Did we lose Jenny?
Oh, she's muted.
She's probably on mute. Yeah.
Oh,
there she is. There she is.
We missed all the good stuff while you were muted.
Yeah.
No. Oh boy, Jason. Oh boy.
That's it? Just oh boy? Interesting. It's not a lot. Usually you have a lot to say.
I mean, big cannabis. Yeah, let's try to make sure that we make it fair for everybody. I don't know, Jason. I don't know. I'm still wrapping my head around the idea that we've let this spiral so far out of control that we have a big cannabis.
17,000 people are still patients in the state of Delaware. I feel like that's like almost half their population in the entire state.
Yeah, sounds like.
What is Delaware's population? I mean, it is small.
Yeah, it's very small. It's teeny, teeny, tiny. Oh, and there's Michael, Mr. Minardi. That.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Mr. Minardi had court this morning, so he was a little delayed in joining us.
Well, that seems fair. You got to keep people out of jail, Michael.
Yeah.
First things
Just
first.
over 1 million people in Delaware.
I love sitting there for 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
Just over 1 million. Okay, well, so it's still really small. But I mean,
jail are the people of Delaware who are stuck in this molasses race to implement a program. When they say that they have to go slow and measured because they're doing it all from scratch, that means they're public policy nincompoops because none of this has to be from scratch.
Yeah.
And so if you're building something, you would take off the shelf parts and build something, but instead they're making everything custom on a CNC machine to really delay the rollout is the only thing that you can think is the goal here. And they can say, hey, we have a program. But even it said that they were like deliberating on setbacks. Setbacks being the distance as the crow flies from a sensitive use site, such as a school or a house of religious worship.
Yeah.
It doesn't take 2 years to have that conversation, to figure out what's working in other places, to make adjustments based on either the density or the makeup of those neighborhoods. And so it's really obviously a deliberate slow roll so that they can say they have a program, but not have to be responsible for implementing or adjusting the program. It's painful, and ultimately the people of Delaware are the ones that lose, especially customers and patients. It's there's no excuse for it. If there was any other section of public policy, there'd be heads that already would have rolled.
In the pun.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it continues to be those regimes and policymakers that really don't want to see this happen, you know, so they continue to delay. So you wonder, like, you know, how many pharmaceutical companies are putting lining the pockets of their legislators or people there that are involved in this. That's really where I think it starts from.
They also made sure that they replicated the misstep of local control, allowing areas to outright ban dispensaries. Yeah. And we can see how that's not worked in California, not worked in New York for Long Island. Doesn't make any sense.
Just shows you the concessions they make, you know, as advocates for legalization, right? We make every concession necessary, right? You can see it state to state. Okay, we won't do that. Okay, we won't do this. Okay, we won't do that. Right? And they still can't get it together. You know, but I think you're right. You know, this is a slow roll. This is something they don't want to have happen. So they move slowly and they put it in the back of the line. It's terrible, you know, because it's the will of the people. That's what pisses me off the most, is that when people vote for shit, their job is to go legislate that stuff. You know what I mean?
He said that the reason it's going slow is because they have to get this right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, going slow is a symptom
not right
in places of not getting it right. And the time that it takes to roll out these programs, provide people with entitlements and certificates of occupancy and the opportunity to run businesses, that amount of time it is borderline criminal. When we think about operators in Los Angeles, where it took more than 900 days to get their storefronts open, the time it takes is like policy, like leeches. It's these little death by 1,000 cuts. Things take forever. Everything takes longer, costs more. It's no way to stand up an industry. And if you care about patients and customers, you just would never approach it this way.
That's the thing, is they don't care about the customer or the patient, right? Talked about it earlier. They care about the tax dollar and where does it go and how do we spend it?
And how do we be able to issue more fines so we can bring in more revenue? Because we know you guys all break the law.
Kids.
Exactly.
And how do the cops keep their jobs?
Yep. That's what this whole story was all about, pretty much, is how cops are going to maintain their jobs. And on that, we're going to go right into Mr. Michael Minardi. He's an attorney out in the great red state of Florida. He's been fighting for patients' rights for over 20 years, representing patients in Florida, helping them stay out of jail, and as well as helping businesses stay compliant. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Michael Minardi.
And the crown.
Welcome, high noon, to everybody on the East Coast at the High at Noon Night Show.
Yes.
So today we're talking about the indigent people, the people that have been here, indigenous, not indigent. People who've been here forever, who probably been using this plant for thousands of years, who are stuck on reservations and continue to be controlled by our government. But this is exciting. Minnesota tribe opened state's first recreational marijuana store off the reservation lands, as cities plan government-run dispensaries. A Native American tribe over the weekend opened Minnesota's first ever legal recreational marijuana store outside of a reservation. The new shop in Moorhead will be followed next month by another location in St. Cloud that will also be operated by the White Earth Nation. Meanwhile, as Minnesota's adult-use cannabis market gets up and running, more than a dozen cities and counties are seeking to open their own government-run stores. This has never been done before, being the first to be able to open an off-reservation dispensary, let alone just the first dispensary in the state. Zach Wilson, CEO of White Earth Nation's cannabis business, Wabagin Mashiki, told Minnesota Public Radio about the Moorhead store. Cannabis smokers, the launch of the new shop comes after Governor Tim Walz signed a landmark agreement earlier this month to allow the tribe to operate up to 8 retail marijuana stores across the state. Everything the store sells is all completely vertical, seed to sale, with products grown, processed, and packaged by the Wabagan Mashiki, which means flower, medicine, and Obi-John Wilson said, "The only thing we don't manufacture is our beverages, but everything else absolutely completely in-house." Available products on opening weekend reportedly included only smokable flower and beverages, with gummies, concentrates, and vape cartridges expected to be in stock soon. Lab testing information on the projects is available through affixed QR codes. Adara Rutherford, who works in the tribe's production facility, told NPR that the business is one of the only few big companies in the state right now that is doing third-party testing. A visitor to the shop from Fargo, North Dakota, called the opening a wonderful thing for Minnesota. The stigmas of the harms of cannabis, I think they're starting to understand that it's not as harmful as they once thought, compared to everything else that's out there, said Damon Knutson. It's the lesser of the evils. Notably, Minnesota's 2023 cannabis legalization law allows tribes within the state to open marijuana businesses before state licensing of businesses begins. Following the law's enactment, a number of tribal governments, including White Earth Nation, the Red Lake Band, and the Chippewa Indians, and the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwa, made early moves to enter the market. Minnesota's officials have said a compact with another tribe could be signed in the coming weeks. Nationwide, more than 26% of the 350 federally recognized indigenous communities in this continental U.S. are involved in some sort of cannabis program, according to a recently published infographic from the Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association and the law firm Vicente Cederberg. As for forthcoming government-run stores, NPR reports that 13 cities and counties in the state have applied for licenses to operate their own marijuana stores. The city of Anoka, for one, broke ground last week on a $2.7 million facility, though the city's liquor and cannabis operations, so they're still waiting for final approval from the state OCM. We might be waiting around for it, but at least we'll be ready to go. We'll have that in hand, and we can hit the ground running. Other municipalities seeking licenses to run their own dispensaries include St. Joseph's, Osseo, which are reporting waiting to secure licenses before breaking ground on facilities. Minnesota's deadline to apply for local government cannabis licenses was March 16th, beginning a 90-day approval window. The OCM representative said that the agency expects municipal stores to begin opening this summer. By law, Minnesota allows local governments to limit the number of retailers in their jurisdiction, though it requires leaders to at least one marijuana store for every 12,500 residents. Anoka Mayor Eric Skogquist told NPR that the city's interest in cannabis is similar to its stance on alcohol. The city's reportedly been in the liquor industry since 1937. I think the logic is very similar, where the city is in the one in control, making sure that we are operating well, operating responsibly, setting a good standard, and then the secondary portion of it is also the financial side of it, said the mayor. It's expected to be profitable. It's not expected to be profitable until the third year of operation. The mayor described the store as an opportunity for the city to basically expand our current enterprise, to be able to have this as well as potentially raise millions of revenue that we can use to cover things like parks, policing, and other things that won't have to come off the backs of the property tax-paying public. Separately, in Minnesota, the state court is deciding whether or not the officials have authority to prosecute tribal members for cannabis crimes committed on tribal land. This case centers on a White Earth citizen who allegedly sold cannabis from his tobacco store on reservation land in Mohammed. Last month, meanwhile, state officials moved to delay a separate drug reform, the opening of safe drug consumption sites, meant to allow people to use drugs in a safer, supervised setting. More work needs to be done on state and federal level before these services can be implemented. In March, lawmakers also filed legislation that would create a system to allow legal access to psilocybin for medical purposes. This just came days after the introduction of a separate bill that would legalize personal psilocybin use and possession of it among adults. So this is great. It's great to see the Indians getting involved in something other than casinos. I know here in Florida, at one period of time, there was an interstate compact between the Seminole Indians and our government that did not allow them to get involved in the cannabis market as long as they continue to be the sole monopoly in our gambling market here in the state of Florida. So should the chief be able to puff it up, or what do you guys think?
I mean, this,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think this is great that the tribe is finally opening up stores in outside of the reservation, and from a previous story that we covered, I learned that their off-site locations are subject to all of the same compliance as a normal store would be. So meaning that it's all got to be on track and trace, metric, whatever, everything else like that, except for anything that's sold on their reservation. It's not accountable for that in any way whatsoever. I thought that was really interesting.
It's interesting how those rules are. You know, if you're on your own land, you can do whatever you want. But if you want to participate in other people's land, and you have to follow the rules. Yes, same applies here in Nevada. And they've done a great job. Nuwu Dispensary and Lounge is one of the biggest in the city, and is killer. And they do a great job operating and maintaining. Open the first lounge because of exactly what you said.
Yeah,
didn't have to follow the rules of the state, right? They could have just made their own. So they did. They did a good job with it, and I think it's a great place. And I think this is great news.
Sweet, Jenny, are you with us? Is she there? Is she on mute?
She's muted again.
She's muted again.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm here. I'm right here. I'm here.
Okay.
No, this is awesome. I also appreciate that they're able to make everything in-house other than the beverages. Obviously, the beverages is kind of an interesting market in that state, but I think it's cool. It's very cool. Moving right along.
Moving. What do you guys say, Yarrow? Right.
I mean, look, we've been nibbling around this sort of tribal sovereignty. How does that intersect with regulated cannabis in markets that have a program for a really long time? And some of that's been somewhat successful, and some of it has been testing the United States interpretation of sovereignty in a way that didn't go over so well. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like to see indigenous communities have opportunity beyond sin industries, for lack of a better word, whether that's gambling or cannabis. There's, I think, no question that thinking about economic revitalization or just vitalization is an integral part to, the debt this nation owes them, and the agreements that have been made. And the beverage thing was an interesting holdout for me, because if I'm a tribe that does have money from gambling. Buying the equipment to make beverages is not the biggest barrier to entry. So I wondered when I heard that whether they had geeked out and understood emulsion technology and their choices in formulation, or whether that was just kind of like a 2.0 or 3.0 productization conversation that they're going to be having. Not sure about that.
Time will tell.
I think most tribes are able to conform with the guidelines with the adjacent states that they're close to. But I always just come back to the same darn thing, which is until there's meaningful change in the way that those states are taxing these products, I think we're going to continue to see the same issue around broader adoption of regulated cannabis versus illicit cannabis.
I would love to see Florida do it. Some of the tribes here do it. I mean, I think people could obviously have a great time with our Seminole casino areas and the party places that they provide. But I think the tax issue is something very interesting as well. Will it be taxed by the state off of tribal lands and then not taxed, or taxed by the tribe on tribal lands? And will there be a difference there?
Very good point, Michael. And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back. Yes, and stop whatever you are doing. Make sure that you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com. And make sure you go in the description below. Check out all of our sponsors that help make this show possible, as well as order yourself a case of Liberal Tears. Oh my God, this stuff tastes so great. Patriot Peach. It was such a great to have some of these beverages on the Memorial Day weekend. It was fantastic. 150 milligrams of caffeine in every can and 0 grams of sugar. So it's that healthy choice. I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door. And then next door to that, they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi. Oh, yes, and we are back, Jenny.
Oh boy, coming up next, it's the angriest elf on the High at 9 shelf. He looks like he's the sleepiest elf this morning. I don't know, maybe he's still high from judging this weekend. But coming up next, what you got, Yarrow Kubrin?
It's all that brisket he ate yesterday for Memorial Day.
Itis, I see.
Yeah.
And he's on mute. He's sleeping on the mute.
Jenny's right.
There we go.
I'm in the thick of it. And this testing's brutal.
Yeah, you look very intoxicated.
Judge is just tough.
It's a hardware judge.
My article today takes me halfway across the country to the world of tumbleweed and brisket, the place where your rights matter, unless you're a woman. But in any case, here we go, all the way over to Texas. And let's talk a little bit about the what they're doing over there. So, Texas Lieutenant Governor announces expansion of compassionate use ban a THC ban. So bear with me while we go through their definition of expansion. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick announced Sunday that an expansion for compassionate use is moving forward as Texas bans THC products, which is heading over to Governor Greg Abbott's desk for a signature. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick posted on Sunday on X saying that he and Representative Tom Alverson have come to an agreement on adding chronic pain as a qualifying medical condition to the Texas Compassionate Use Program for those who suffer chronic pain is currently defined by the Texas Medical Board rules. Senate Bill 3 bans all products containing THC. And critics argue that the ban will hurt chronic pain sufferers who rely on the low THC products for relief. Patrick's post said he and the authors of House Bill 46, which establishes registration rules for medical THC use, have had a positive conversation, and they look forward to passing this bill for our veterans and those who suffer from chronic pain. Got to bring in the veterans, right? Cue the flags. The Senate and my concern has always been that we don't want to go back to the days of doctors writing prescriptions for anyone who paid them for a prescription for pain pills. Patrick wrote, let me reread that. The Senate and my concern has always been that we don't want to go back to the days of doctors writing prescriptions for anyone who paid them for a prescription for pain refills. Patrick wrote in part. Dr. Alverson will presented a new thoughtful plan that the Senate and I can support that will help those in true need of relief. Patrick said the state will expand licenses from the current number of three in the whole state to a whopping 12. Wow. Adding a satellite locations in each public health region. Wonder how big those regions are. He said terminal illness and hospice care have been added as qualifying medical conditions. So Texas is so ahead of the curve that if you are dying, they're now going to let you use medical cannabis. Way to go, blazing the lead there. So they've allowed qualifying medical conditions. Compassionate use program dosage allotments have been increased and standardized. Patrick said this will give physicians autonomy to prescribe the right dose for each patient's needs, along with metered dose inhalation delivery systems. All right, so Texas, let me give you a little bit of a memo on what real autonomy means. Texas, real autonomy means patients and doctors get to have a relationship that is unfettered, unmolested, interfered with by the government. And so if you're talking about dosage allotments, you are talking about restricting doctors' determination of what they think the appropriate dosage is for their patient. So dressing it up as if you're empowering those doctors when you're probably literally shackling those doctors doesn't make it better program, just makes for better sound bites. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News.
Yeah, they're trying to say, oh, you know what? We're gonna make more make more patients in the state of Texas, and you know the thing is that I think they only have like 3 dispensaries in the entire state, and Texas is larger than California. Like they need so much expansion on that program from what you're able to get a recommendation for. They actually call it a prescription in Texas, as well as access points, retail places for people to be able to pick up this medicine. Like they need a complete overhaul of their whole program overall, in my opinion, Yarrow.
Yeah, but Governor Hot Wheels doesn't want to do that. Right, he wants to keep it away from the kids. He wants to protect the community. He wants the people who voted for it not to be able to succeed. It's just bureaucratic bullshit like the rest of it.
I don't know if I agree with all of your points, but I can understand how you could come to those kinds of conclusions, Todd. But none.
They could legalize it tomorrow, right? I mean, the people want it. The governor doesn't. It's just obvious.
Well, the people want it. It's the legislature that doesn't want it. It's more the lieutenant governor more than even is the actual governor.
There's no way.
That's the kind of thing you say when you have to split hairs because your party isn't standing up on the right side of history of this state.
I agree with that. I agree with it. They're totally on the wrong side of history on that, Yarrow. You're 100% right, and I've said that time and time again that any of these Republicans that voted for SB3, they're not real Republicans at heart, because they don't care about true freedom and liberty. I've said that numerous times. These people are straight up prohibitionists that are trying to base it off of all of ideological type of perspectives that they need to just kind of like just jump back a little bit, because they need to go back and read the Old Testament, because God actually created cannabis, and it says in Genesis 1:29 that all plants of this earth are to be utilized and whatnot. And so they need to go back to the Old Testament instead of living too much in the New Testament.
Well, and they
we really need to be in any of the testaments, right?
Well, I mean that is the Bible.
Legislate with the Bible.
That is the Bible Belt down there, Todd, and that's just how it is down there.
It doesn't make it right. That's just how it is.
It's just how it is.
That's why that it's not going to pass, because these religious freaks want everyone else to have their religion, whatever that might be, because they want to legislate based on their God, which is completely fucked up, and that's why it doesn't work.
What were you going to say, Michael?
I was going to say the same thing with that. And these people are just so ignorant regarding it. And not until one of their church members is suffering from cancer or something of that nature, and they need this medicine to relieve their pain or ease their suffering so they could actually have a few good days left while they're dying. That's the only way that these people come around, unfortunately, in my experience.
100%.
That part is true. That part is true. They and I don't want to wish any of their family members or whatnot for the people to experience that, because it's super rough. But unfortunately, that is one of the things that is a big turning point. Go ahead, Yarrow.
No, it's just, we see this on both sides of the aisle, the selective outrage, the selective application of certain things. In Texas, they believe in deregulation when it comes to the power grid, but they're talking about increasing the number of entities that can sell medical cannabis from 3 to 12, which is just, I mean, if that's not the essence of over-regulation, of over-government interference, all the things that the Republican Party says they don't stand for, it's really topic dependent. And so you've got very well populated sunshine states, Florida and Texas, where I think the state level Republican leadership is boof. It's terrible. And doesn't seem to care to even pretend to align itself with the professed planks of that party.
They love over-regulation.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Unless it affects their business, right? Or their donor's business.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I remember a few years ago in the legislative session here, they were talking about the express healthcare clinics and how they needed one of those on like every corner to give people more availability and more options. But then the next bill was the dispensary one and the MMTCs, and they're like, nope, we got to be limited. And it's really against the Republican free market economy as well that I think is the biggest travesty, that they don't want capitalism to be capitalism and let the strong survive and let the weak die. And that's just how it should be here in this industry, like it is in every other industry, in our culture, whether or not that's good or bad, because we do have some of the largest monopolies, I think, in the world under that structure as well, even though we're not supposed to have monopolies, right?
Well, we have oligopolies, I thought. Oligopolies more than monopolies here.
Yeah, much like our government.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Jenny, you have anything you want to say on this before we go to our last commercial?
No.
All right.
Roll into the commercial.
All
roll
right.
that beautiful bean footage, Jason.
Yeah, we're going to roll into that, and we'll be right back.
Oh, man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, I left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard it gets you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested, every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility, so you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Sure, but where's the before?
No.
Yes, and we are back, you guys. Go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, yeah? We're bringing you back, Jason?
Well, no, you're going to Todd, Jenny.
Oh, Todd.
Hey, attention.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, God. The golden voice at his golden age, straight out of Las Vegas, Nevada, the founder of DigiPet Labs and the Smuggleverse. You want to play, Todd? Let's play, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got some sun this weekend on his Chrome Dome. Todd Denkin.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'm going to give myself some applause here if you guys don't mind. It's just going on and on. I can't. Well, thank you for that. Edible. Well, we're going back to Minnesota as Minnesota lawmakers pass a bill to decriminalize bong water, ending the risk, right? Ending the risk of decades in prison over drug residue. Right, Minnesota became the butt of national jokes after the state Supreme Court ruled in 2009 that bong water could be legally considered a drug. Minnesota authorities would no longer be able to charge people with major drug crimes solely on the basis of the dirty water in their bongs, thanks to a provision in the 192-page Judiciary and Public Safety Bill that was sent to Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat, over the weekend, and he's expected to sign it. Under current law, quantities of bong water greater than 4 ounces can be treated like the pure, uncut version of whatever substance the bong was used to smoke. It can lead to massive criminal penalties. 4 ounces of bong water used to consume methamphetamine for it. Trigger a first-degree felony charge carrying up to a 30 years in prison and a $1 million fine. New language removes that provision and specifies that for charging purposes, drug mixture, quote, does not include the fluid used in the water pipe or any amount of controlled substance that is dissolved in the pipe's fluid, unquote. Change would apply retroactively to August 2023, bringing it in line with a broader drug paraphernalia decriminalization bill that went into effect at the time. In practice, prosecutors virtually never charge bong water offenses because most people intuitively understand that 8 ounces of dirty bong water is not the same thing as 8 ounces of pure methamphetamine. Counting dirty bong water as pure drugs is like counting a beer bottle full of backwash and cigarette butts as 80-proof whiskey. One attorney colorfully characterized it into the Reformer earlier this year. It does happen. Issue drew national attention this year after a Northwest Minnesota prosecutor levied first-degree drug charges on a Fargo woman, Jessica Besk, on account of the water allegedly found in her bong. Because of the retroactive provision, that case would be thrown out if Walz signs the bill. ACLU in Minnesota is glad to see the legislature fix this loophole that allowed rogue prosecutors to put people suffering from addiction in prison for smoking drugs out of a bong. Alicia Grants of the American Civil Liberties Union is representing Besk in court. Ms. Besk and others like her, no longer be subjected to this cruel and unusual treatment. Minnesota, as mentioned before, became the butt of national jokes after the state Supreme Court ruled in 2009 that bong water could be legally considered a drug. Justices relied in part on the testimony of a Minnesota State Patrol officer who claimed drug users keep bong water, quote, for future use. They're drinking it or shooting it in their veins.
That's too good.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right? Legislators attempted to decriminalize small amounts of bong water the following year, but then Governor Tim Pawlenty, a Republican, vetoed it. in order to project a, quote, tough on crime, unquote, image, advance a plan to run for president. Didn't work out. I'm Todd Denkin with High 9 News, and I'm wondering what you guys think about bong water finally being legal in Minnesota. Look, this is just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard ever in the history of cannabis regulations and legalization. Do you know anyone look, I've been smoking weed a long time because Jenny mentioned I am in my golden years. And bong water is the grossest shit on the planet. You literally have to remove your carpet. You spill it on your carpet. You can't clean it up. You got to get a new carpet. Right? You spill it in your car. You need a new fucking car. No one is drinking it. No one is shooting it in their veins. Just the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's man. This is so ridiculous. And the fact that they said that people are shooting up bong water. I mean, I think the reason probably no one ever gets charged for their bong water, Todd, is because then they would have to book that into evidence, and then that would just totally stink up their whole evidence room. My God, could you just imagine smelling nothing but bong water in the evidence room? Oh my God, that would be so good. I'm willing to bet that's why that doesn't happen.
The fact that they have to make a law. The fact that they have to pass a law says it's not legal. Is
you know, the only scary thing to me is if a cop reads this, they'd be like, especially in Florida, be like, I can charge someone with bong water now? Because you know, in all likelihood, right, it's like cocaine, and I understand the water aspect of it, but I could see a prosecutor justifying and say, well, this tested positive for THC. You have to use the whole mixture of it like you do with cocaine, right? Yep. Cocaine needs to be 8% cut, and they're charging you with the whole thing. So I could really see a cop looking at that and be like, I'm going to try this now here in the state of Florida. Yeah,
right? I totally agree with you on that. I could totally see them trying that without a doubt. What do you think, Yarrow?
I mean, I've done some stupid stuff as recently as last week. Probably I did inject bong water. I mean, I'm like Forrest Gump, Mama. Mama, man, stupid is and stupid does, and so I may be the president of the Bong Water Hemophiliacs Association. I don't know. I as I was listening to the news, I was thinking to myself, that's probably why bongs aren't my favorite. But I also think there has to be some type of legal basis. I mean, I don't even, aside from getting some of the residue out of smoke, does bong water even absorb any of the THC?
No. Water is not a good way to extract THC from cannabis plants.
So like, even if you were trying to go through it's got residue, like this seems like real flimsy reasoning. And then, can you imagine walking the yard, what are you in here for, dog? 55-gallon drum is stinking. You're already used and stuff.
Not even 4 ounces. 4 ounces of bong water.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to be a big dog, you got to have like more than 4 ounces of bong water, I think, to really strut your credibility. It's crazy. It's crazy that we're talking about it in 2025. It's crazy that people have probably been, this has been the basis or used in convictions and prosecution. I mean, it is like, you have to be high to prosecute someone for bong water. I mean, I think it's really hard to consider how much resources are being used, taxpayer resources, prosecute people for the existence of stinky water that they probably should have smoked a blunt anyway.
I'll go for it, Jenny. Go for it. What do you guys say?
I just want to know how they knew you were shooting it up between your toes, Yarrow, because who told them that? Who tipped them off on that one? That's the most insane thing I've ever heard anyone say. But yeah, cool. I mean, it's just like when we were buying bongs in high school and they kick you out of the smoke shop if you said anything other than like a tobacco water pipe.
Right.
Yep. I remember that. I remember those days, the good old days, you guys. Well, That was a fun story, Todd. I enjoyed that thoroughly. This speaking of ridiculous policies and whatnot. I have on our final story. I think this is kind of ridiculous too, Yarrow. And this story is just for you, buddy, because the Texas Agricultural Commissioner says hemp farmers won't be affected by the THC ban, you guys. Can you believe that they're saying this? The Texas Agricultural Commissioner is trying to reassure Texas hemp farmers that their livelihoods are not at risk after state lawmakers approved an outright ban on THC products. Texas Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller is trying to reassure Texas hemp farmers that their livelihoods are not at risk after state lawmakers last week approved an outright ban on THC products, even those containing cannabinoids from federally legal hemp plants, they say. In a quote, Texas farmers are worried about the effects of Senate Bill 3 on the hemp industry, Miller said in a statement released on Friday. And here's his whole quote. This legalization does not ban growing hemp or planting hemp for biomass. It's a targeted effort to crack down on abuse of THC in the retail sector, not a ban on legitimate hemp farming. We have maintained constant communication with the legislature to ensure the voices of our growers are heard and that essential protection for Texas producers stays in place, Miller said in a statement. The proposal to ban THC statewide in Texas, a policy that was championed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Republican, attracted hundreds of activists to the state capitol this month in protest of the policy. And if signed into law by the governor, the policy would prohibit the sale of any products containing Delta 8 or Delta 9 THC or any other cannabinoids except CBD or CBG. In a quote, they say, we have maintained constant communication with the legislature to ensure the voices of our growers are heard and that essential protection from Texas producers stays in place, Miller wrote in a quote. I've been in contact with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and I am committed to ensuring our farmers can continue to grow hemp without any unnecessary interference, he says. Well, I mean, yeah, all these guys can grow all the hemp they want, but if there's no one to buy it, why are these people going to continue to grow it? And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. These guys are so half-ass backwards out there right now. They need to get into
It's not going to affect your hemp business if nobody's going to buy it. Come on, what are you thinking?
Yeah, right. You're not going to affect your ability to grow it. All you hemp farmers, but is the Texas legislature and the federal government just going to subsidize all of these farmers for their crops because there's no one there to buy them now anymore? Like, is it going to get put on the back of the taxpayers? What's going to happen?
Another typical case of a GOP lie. Mm-hmm. Lie.
I don't know if I call it a lie. I call it a miss.
It's not a lie.
No, I don't.
The fact that you will call the GOP lying.
I don't think this is a lie. I think this is a total spin on reality. This is a total spin out of reality and being out of touch with reality. He's not lying. He's not lying that SB3 won't stop people from being able to cultivate hemp. That part is true. That's what he's saying. But what he's not saying is the actual overall truth, which are the economical impacts of it, of the fact that none of these farmers are going to be able to maintain their farms or pay their bills because there's going to be no one out there to buy their hemp product at the end of their harvest.
You just
dishonesty by omission. Yeah, that sounds like a lie. It sounds like a sub-variety
lie. Yeah.
On the lying family tree. That's in there.
That's definitely in the
it's a distant cousin, okay? It gets to eat at the Thanksgiving table too.
It's a lie, but I really believe it. So is it a lie?
I mean, he's not lying. SB3 doesn't deal with hemp farms.
Are so ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So and I think a lot of our legislators here in Florida, when I spoke to them and started speaking about these things, they had no clue about these ideas and what hemp is used for, the types of different hemp products that are legal that are being sold as THCA, like the CBG and CBN and stuff like that. And the other thing I thought this article also meant was they were going to try to prevent people shipping these products into the state,
mm-hmm.
which I think is a clear violation of the federal farm bill on the interstate commerce.
Mm-hmm. I think you might be right about that. That might be a case right there.
Well, I mean, what we have is a case of the do-nothing government on a federal level under both Republican and Democratic leadership that didn't feel that updating the Farm Bill was a priority so that states can patchwork their way through rules and regs to solve for the fact that the Farm Bill hasn't been updated in 8 years.
Well, it doesn't help that the courts have interpreted, some of the courts have interpreted the Farm Bill as the way that they can, saying that the states can, my position is that there's a provision in the Farm Bill that says states can provide stricter rules related to the hemp space. I believe that should only apply to cultivation and not the interstate commerce of these products.
Ooh, that's a good argument.
Really, I think that I think that this issue has to go to the U.S. Supreme Court at some point in time, because there's a difference between the federal courts as to how they're applying these hemp statutes.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Michael, and I think the hemp industry needs to get behind that, because that would make the most sense, because we would get a quick judgment out of the Supreme Court, and that would reverse pretty much every single state ban that is going on in all these states that have enacted this type of bad legislation in place.
Yeah, I mean,
wait, do you want to listen to the Supreme Court, or you don't want to listen to this?
I always listen to the Supreme Court.
As long as it doesn't have to do with habeas corpus, we're totally listening, Todd. But if it has to do with like due process, we don't need any of that stinking due process. That's just slowing us down. That's not the hallmark of a democracy.
That's not what habeas corpus is. Habeas corpus is when the president has the ability to deport anybody. You know that?
The government does have the ability to deport anybody.
When you made out with somebody who was already deceased.
Oh boy, that's because there's so many deceased voters in the voter roll right now, Yarrow.
Especially in Florida.
So the thing is that when it comes to this hemp thing, first of all, I disagree. I don't think it needs to go before the Supreme Court. I think things that go before the Supreme Court is an indication that things didn't get worked out elsewhere, and so it's a symptom of government not functioning in a way that it could without that final and inevitable, that escalation that has no further place to go. I think if they can just treat hemp the way they treat women and say that a plant begins at gestation. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
No, I think ultimately it is a failing of the federal government to not update the Farm Bill. And where I would disagree around regulating it according to cultivation is I'm thoroughly convinced that cannabinoids need to be regulated in one of two ways, based on whether they're intoxicating or non-intoxicating. And that's where the line should be. That's where the line demarcation. If it gets you high, it gets regulated one way. If it doesn't, it gets regulated another way. And I don't think it should matter which plant it comes from. I think that's just the most sane approach. Every state that's doing this stuff is a byproduct of the Farm Bill not being updated. And every state has Republican and Democratic lawmakers and governors. And we've seen this from the Carolinas to New Jersey to Texas. And all of these states are doing this because the federal government hasn't provided science-based leadership and updated its Farm Bill. It's obvious. Like the elephant is in the living room. Like we can call it anything we want. We can digress. We can pontificate. Update your Farm Bill. It's like, I mean, I know I've got a phone. When the little red line goes on it, I'm supposed to update the software. I press a little thing and I update it. And they haven't done that for so long. And it's unfair to the states. And so I don't even think we can blame the states for their patchwork, workaround attempts to try to solve for something, because in a better world, they wouldn't have to solve for any of it.
The story. I think the story here is that the legislatures are lying to the citizens and lying to the hemp growers, saying, "Oh, you can still grow it, but nobody can buy it."
Yeah, no one. They just want to make it just strictly for textiles, basically. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of completely disagree with everything Yarrow had said regarding updating the Farm Bill. because I don't think it is about updating the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is very clear, I think, on its language. It's how it continues to be interpreted throughout the country, and it continues to be the anti-marijuana segment of the population who doesn't want these products, which I think technically should be legal, on store shelves. And as opposed to regulating them for adults 21 plus, they're banning them. But otherwise, the definition of hemp is very clear on the federal level. The definition of the Interstate Commerce Clause and that states can't interfere with the interstate transportation of these products is very clear. The one thing I do believe that Yarrow is correct on, but I don't think this is editing the Farm Bill. I think this is the FDA getting off their ass and regulating all the other products that are derived from hemp that need to be regulated, like the gummies and things of that nature. But, I think the Farm Bill was well written. I think it's clear. It removes hemp and all hemp isomers, products, derivatives, compounds from the Controlled Substance Act, and these states continue to want to put it back into the Controlled Substance Act and continue to criminalize it because they don't like this plan.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Don't you think that's because, people are exploiting the rules and making psychedelic, or not psychedelic, but hemp products that are getting you high.
No one's exploiting the rules, though, Todd. That's the whole thing. The rules are that's what the rules were made as.
Just saying they're exploiting a bad rule, right?
No, they're not.
All of that stuff.
They're not exploiting a rule. I totally disagree with that analysis.
What do you mean? They're making all these THCA products. So you think that hemp farmers should be able to,
I do.
Make THCA and THC and Delta 8 and all that shit? Yeah?
No problem. Let them, let the market figure it out. I believe in testing standards and stuff like that, but each state can make its own regulations as far as how they want those things to be processed. But at the same time, there are some states that have processing.
Skated the rules. And they're not skating the rules because they're exploiting the rules. Which there's nothing wrong with exploiting something that benefits you in business, right? I'm just saying that they have the opportunity to do it, and it all needs to be the same. In my opinion.
Yeah, the FDA really has to get on board and do what they're supposed to do. I think that they're the failing actor in this. They're the one and sole actor that we can point to that hasn't done their jobs. When Mitch McConnell and Representative Blumhauer established this bill, they said on the Senate floor, hemp is legal in this country. It just depends on where it's grown. The entire purpose of the bill was to give our farmers another agricultural commodity. They didn't know at that point what types of products were going to come out of it. That's why they created those programs to allow those farmers to do so as long as it met that 0.3% Delta 9 THC threshold. And they may have been ignorant when they wrote it, but they wrote it and it's clear. So I don't think it's exploiting a loophole. I think it's taking advantage, just like taking deductions on your taxes.
Exactly.
It's taking advantage of what the laws are, and it's using them to create an industry that, ultimately has built up some huge farms across this country that didn't previously exist.
The fact that the law is about Delta 9, which doesn't grow in hemp, right?
That's great.
But it's about Delta 9, but now they're taking these products and they're converting them into Delta 9, right, and Delta 8. And I think that's I disagree. They have to follow hemp laws, don't have to follow cannabis. If they're making cannabis from their hemp, they should be able to follow cannabis. And if it gets you high, it needs to be tested.
That's an FDA issue. FDA has to get on board. I do testing protocols, so everyone's doing it differently. That's another huge problem. The FDA, and we've seen our federal legislature try to push them over the years, but they have to do something on this to take control of it, to normalize labeling and things like that across the country. And honestly, the feds really should put a clamp down and say, listen, no, these products are legal. You cannot turn around and recriminalize them.
I'm with that. Jenny, you have anything you want to say? Jenny? I think you're on mute.
Oh, sure should am.
Oh,
Nothing that I haven't said before. I still think it's a loophole. I mean, like I truly believe, like in their heart of hearts, the intention was for industrial hemp. So intoxicating cannabinoids are another thing. But hey, I've said that.
Jenny Beth,
I've said it a million times.
Jenny Beth, you do know that you couldn't tie your shoes without a loophole.
I do know that, Jason.
Okay, just saying. Yeah. Loopholes are important.
It's actually a bunny ear, but okay.
Loopholes are important, Jenny Beth. Just saying.
Make loopholes great again.
That's right. Make loopholes great.
Thanks for joining us for another episode.
And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst, Aim High Hemp Distribution Tested for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Anthony out there in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. And we are off, you guys.